At this point, we are pleased to welcome Senator Debbie Stabenow, Chairwoman of the Senate Committee on Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry. Her roots are in rural Michigan, and she knows deeply the importance of agriculture and food policy. As Chairwoman of the Senate Ag Committee, she authored the 2014 Farm Bill and served as the ranking Democrat when the 2018 Farm Bill was passed. Senator Stabenow knows the economy as a whole depends upon agriculture and vital rural communities. In her position of leadership, she has long worked to ensure all types of farmers, big and small, urban and rural, have the support they need. She has also focused her efforts to expand access to healthy foods for children, families, and seniors. Please help me welcome Senator Debbie Stabenow.
Well, hello, Rob. Thank you so much. And I am so grateful for your leadership as president of the National Farmers Union, to all of your board, to everybody who's engaged today. And I have to give a special shout out to my friends from Michigan, Bob Thompson, our Michigan Farmers Union president, and all of the folks that are online today. I can't wait, like all of you, until we can be back in person. So, and congratulations. I heard some of the awards that were just announced. Pretty impressive to see so much leadership and so many folks that are engaged in our food and farm economy right now. And boy, do we need it. So thank you for all you do. It's been a tough year, obviously, a tough time, but appreciate all of you hanging in there, and I appreciate your input and ideas always. You really are partners for me and for our Senate Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry Committee, and I'm looking forward to having that continue now as I reassume the chair of the committee. And just as my partnership with Senator Roberts was extremely strong, very, very positive. I expect the same thing with Senator Bozeman, who will be the ranking member. You couldn't have a closer Senate or closer committee with the committee split 50-50, and we're going to, be operating in a way that continues the tradition in our committee of really working together on behalf of you, on behalf of all of our farmers and ranchers and families across the country. I know you're interested in hearing about the COVID package. I'm sure you have been focusing on that as well. But the American Rescue Plan, as you know, passed the House and is now in the Senate. I fully expect it to pass, if not this week, the beginning of next week, before March 14th, when some key supports for families run out. So it's very important that it be done. Let me talk a little bit about the agriculture piece of that. As you know, there's $23 billion that is put into this package, and half of that for basically a little over half for food assistance, and the rest for dealing with food supply chain issues and other very important issues that need to be addressed as well. So, but $12 billion for families who are now in the middle of a hunger crisis. We talk about the healthcare crisis, which it is. It's a health pandemic. It's an economic crisis, but we know it's also a hunger crisis, and we have 50 million Americans today trying to figure out how they're going to feed their families, and folks that have volunteered at the food banks, as you know, and donated the food banks, who are now for the first time having to ask for help. So it's important that we step up and that they know we have their back. And I know you agree. So we have important ways in which we're doing that in this bill. We also have $4 billion to repair the food supply chain and to deal with infrastructure investments to build resiliency and protections for food and farm workers, also food donations for families in need. And we give the USDA the flexibility to invest in infrastructure like cold storage and new processing plants, or better prepare for the weather challenges that we have right now. So And I know that you are as concerned as I am about what's happening in terms of the breakdowns in the supply chain. And so I'm interested in continuing to work with you and your ideas on what we should be doing, because uh, a lot of things became apparent during COVID as we look at supply chain issues. We also need to ensure that ongoing consolidation and market concentration isn't putting us in a position where the closure of one plant or one processor shutters the entire supply chain. So this is a whole nother issue, and that we don't want you being forced to make impossible choices with the livestock you raise or the things that you grow. And so we've got some work to do there, and there are dollars that are in this package to focus on that. We also are focusing on systemic issues that have addressed our farmers of color for over 100 years, couple of 100 years, frankly. And the package will provide $5 billion to forgive debt and provide assistance for farmers of color. And this has been inspired by our new Senator Warnock in his bill on emergency relief for farmers of color act. And so I'm pleased we could have this be a part of it. I really appreciate the fact that the National Farmers Union has been among the very first organizations to step up and support this important work and equity. And so we appreciate that and appreciate the opportunities that will be made available to farmers through what we are doing. And also, I should just mention that we have over 150 groups in favor of this package, including this particular provision. And I have to say, Willie Nelson even weighed in on Friday. So as a Willie Nelson fan, I thought that was great. So there's been a lot of interest. The other thing that hasn't been talked a lot about is money that we have in this package for rural healthcare, and there's $500 million to help rural hospitals. I grew up in a small town in northern Michigan. My mom was director of nursing at a small hospital, and certainly the challenges have grown and grown and grown since then. In fact, even making sure that hospitals there has become a challenge. So this is going to help with increasing vaccine capacity, purchasing supplies, and telehealth, which is so very important to have those capabilities. We've always needed it, and now again, with the COVID pandemic, we're seeing where this has become even a greater concern, the gaps in rural broadband. So we expect to have this on the floor later this week, and we'll move forward. And we really can't wait any longer to get this particular provision done, and then we have to continue to work together. Something else that has a great sense of urgency, of course, is an area that we all care about, and again, you are leaders on, and that's the question of the climate crisis. And I know you're on the front lines. Right now, our farmers and ranchers are certainly on the front lines and seeing the impacts, and certainly in terms of the extremes and the weather and what that means economically for you, for all of us, whether it's the disastrous cold in the Great Plains and in Texas, the wildfires on the West Coast, temperatures that fluctuate. So our fruit growers, like our cherry growers, have to deal with our cherry trees thinking it's spring, and then it freezes again, and then it wipes out the blossoms and the cherries or the apples or other fruit in Michigan and across the country. There's so many ways, droughts and flooding, and so many ways in which agriculture is being impacted right now. And that's the bad news. But the good news is that farmers and ranchers are leading and can lead even more. I really do believe that you are key in providing solutions to what is happening on the climate crisis and carbon pollution. So I know that all of you have been at the front front of the line on this for over a decade, and I want to thank you. I remember back in 2009 when there was a climate bill that was passed in the House, and in the Senate, I crafted the Clean Energy Partnership Act, and you were very involved in supporting and providing input at the time for that, and I really appreciate it. That really dealt with carbon credits and carbon sequestration, and how do we support farmers and ranchers and foresters to be part of the solution, and work with our manufacturers and businesses as well. That didn't become law. The world has changed. The world has, actually, unfortunately, with all the carbon pollution, the world has changed for the worse in terms of the impacts. And we now have a crisis that's even more urgent, which is why I'm very, very focused on this. So fortunately, through innovation and technology and federal investments, carbon markets are closer than ever to becoming mainstream realities. And that's what I'm anxious to work on with all of you this year, because we need all the tools in the toolbox to help rural communities adapt and build resiliency to the climate changing. And at the same time, we need to make sure that farmers are productive and profitable. And so the good news is we actually can do both, as you know. So through carbon markets, our farmers have an exciting opportunity to build new revenue streams and be rewarded for the voluntary, sustainable steps that they are taking. We started this on a pilot basis a few years ago, back in my 2014 Farm Bill that I wrote when I was chair. We put in place a conservation innovation grant program. At the time, Detroit's own General Motors was a part of that, paid, and agricultural was part of an agricultural carbon project in North Dakota, working with farmers in North Dakota grasslands, and we're one of the first ones to be part of a carbon project and to be able to develop carbon credits. So the opportunity is there, and there have been others since then in Arkansas and around the country. But one of the things that I hear all the time now from folks in Michigan is, we know there's a problem, we know there's a crisis, we see it every day, but we don't know how to get started to participate right now in part of the solution. And so without participation from farmers and ranchers in the early stage markets, frankly, we're not going to be able to scale up in a way so that the markets can reach their full potential. And so that means we've got to figure out how to support growers. And that's where the Bipartisan Growing Climate Solutions Act comes in, that Senator Braun and I have introduced. As you know, thank you so much for your support, because it's really about supporting and helping farmers and foresters scale up climate smart practices and tap into new economic opportunities through voluntary carbon markets. And I want to stress voluntary carbon markets. So as you know, we create an online one-stop shop for at the USDA for producers to help them get their foot in the door so they can even decide how to move forward if they want to move forward on a project. We have a new USDA website once we pass this that will serve as a comprehensive resource and really a place for information for farmers and foresters interested in generating carbon credits. Establish a USDA certification, which I think is incredibly important, for trusted experts that farmers can work with in order to generate and ultimately sell their carbon credits. You need to know who to trust, who's certified, who can you count on, so that when they're giving you advice, that that if you take it, that it's the right advice. USDA will certify the technical assistance providers to help you adopt climate smart practices, and third-party verifiers that will be very, very important. And then you can have the opportunity to enter the marketplace and to sell carbon to a private buyer. We have more and more markets right now that are out there, as you know, trying to be developed. And so, for example, let's say a farmer hears about carbon credits. So, okay, what is this about? How can I get involved? How can I create a revenue stream? How can I create carbon as a commodity for me? But they don't know where to get started. Most of the carbon credit marketplaces are complex, and it's important. You need help to be able to figure out what the steps are, and to have somebody, someone with experience that can advise you, like a crop advisor or an ag retailer. So that's what this bill is about. Also, under the bill, the USDA would keep a nationwide database of certified experts who would be vetted by the department. You could have confidence in that and know who to trust. So we're in the process right now, Senator Braun and I were thrilled that over 50 organizations support the bill, from the environmental community to the agricultural leadership to food industry in the country. We're still receiving feedback. If you've got some ideas, we're going to be introducing it in a few weeks. It's a great bipartisan bill. We're going to keep it a strong bipartisan bill. And I think it's really the foundation for what we need to do to rebuild the USDA as the leaders and the experts to support and to help you in order to make climate a priority. Let me just also say that we know that this may not work for everybody, and with that, we're in a situation now where the markets right now don't work as well for farmers who rent their land instead of own it, or and by the way, we put a report in the last farm bill to set the stage to fix that problem. But we also know that carbon credit projects take upfront investments, and there's a risk in market fluctuation like in any other commodity. So we want to work with you to address that. I think that's really important. But even if a formal carbon market isn't for you, we know from what we did in the 2018 Farm Bill, there's so many other ways to be able to help farmers adopt climate-friendly practices. Everything from more carbon in the soil, emitting less nitrogen when applying fertilizer, avoiding unwanted methane emissions from livestock. So there's a lot of important work that's going on. Let me just say in conclusion that, of course, we just got our secretary, our former and now current secretary, Secretary Tom Vilsack, officially confirmed last week with a great vote. We had, I think, 93, we had over 90 votes for him, which was really terrific. And again, an example of great bipartisanship. We have the deputy that will be coming forward that we will do hearing on, and I believe confirmed, Dr. Jewel Bernal, who is currently the agricultural leader in Virginia, the state of Virginia. And then finally, we also will be focused on child nutrition. Senator Bozeman and I really want to get the child nutrition bill that is supposed to be done every 5 years. It hasn't been reauthorized in 10 years. We want to get that done. And we are laser focused on expanding high-speed internet. Boy, did COVID expose all the reasons why we have such vulnerabilities there and need to be involved in getting that all across the country. And then finally, I can't believe it, but the Farm Bill isn't too far away. So we will start later in the year, probably doing some initial just hearings to get input, and all of you will be very, very important to that process as well. So lots to do. And anxious to continue our wonderful partnership. But I think we're at a point where we can make some real significant changes and create some opportunities that will be available for a long time for our farmers and ranchers and foresters across the country. And I'm anxious to work with you to make that happen. So thanks, Rob. Happy to take any questions.
All right. Thank you so much, Senator Stabenow. You covered a huge range of issues, many of which our members care deeply about. And so I appreciate kind of the discussion about some of the early priorities and movement of the committee. And although I'm always shocked when folks raise it, the idea that you'll also have a chance for input a little bit later on the next farm bill already, and all that might include. So really value that. But I might start on the questions with one of your biggest priorities right now, and that is climate. Certainly, it's one of ours. And I know that you understand, the diversity of not only types of agriculture, but the geographic and the soil differences across the country. If you're in the high desert of Colorado or eastern Montana, for example, I mean, there are, there's all this diversity, whether we're talking about private markets or what USDA is currently looking at in the administration wide. How do you address some of these challenges that have so many moving pieces and so many different types of agriculture?
Wow, that's a really good question. And I think it's by getting involved in figuring it out. I mean, one of the things that I keep telling everyone, because I hear, well, people are hesitant, maybe they are stepping back and saying, well, we don't want to be involved because we're worried that there'll be one size fits all, or we're worried that something will be a mandate. Well, the best way to guarantee it's not is to get involved and help us, put things together, and make sure that what is being done is specific to different states, different crops, different types of soils, and so on. I mean, I think what we need to say is we need to make this work. There is a lot of diversity. Part of our legislation is a producer-led advisory committee, and there may be more that even needs to be done from a subcommittee level, looking at different regions, different questions around this. And the best way to make sure that it works, and that it works for you, it works for everyone in the country, is to lean in. That's my general sense at this point, to really lean in, be part of the solution, raise the issues where there are differences right now, and give us an opportunity to put together a process to recognize and address the differences. So that's what I think is so important about getting out there early. Our very first hearing will be focusing on this issue, and the opportunities for farmers and foresters to really lead. And the more we are doing that, the more we control how this goes forward. If we sit back and do nothing, somebody else will come in. There'll be a void. And they may not know as much about, in fact, they probably won't know as much about agriculture as all of you do. And so that's why we need to be tackling this. We know this is real. We know we've got over 100 years of carbon pollution, as well as other greenhouse gases that are wreaking havoc right now, and have been, but now are getting to a point that is pretty scary. When we look at the impacts across the country and across the globe, it's time for us to take this seriously. And the great news is we can do it in a way that actually creates a revenue source while agriculture is leading the charge. And so to me, this is win-win, win-win-win, and we should grab it and work really hard to design something that works.
Thank you. One of the issues that you touched on earlier also was the fact that, in addition to the pandemic really kind of laying bare the challenges in some of the rural infrastructure, whether it's healthcare, broadband, et cetera, that we also know the effect that it had on the food system itself, and that the very consolidated, concentrated industry that we have now really doesn't leave much to chance, right? There's not much resiliency built into it. And so wondered if you might share some thoughts that the committee may be looking at or considering to get inputs on building more resiliency and breaking down a little bit of the concentration that is currently existing in the industry.
That is something that we certainly want to look at and design some hearings around. I know it's something that Secretary Vilsack also is very concerned about, and we give flexibility within the funding in the COVID package to address some of that. I mean, certainly, not it's not a large enough package to address all of it, but to begin to address some of it. So, well, we do want to. And I think that, again, as in so many ways, when we look at what happened under COVID, this has laid bare, a lot of challenges for us. And we've got to address this in terms of the capacity to have more processing plants and more smaller, medium-sized operations. I mean, really, deal with this differently going forward. So we do intend to. I'm not sure exactly what form that will take right now, but this is certainly something that we want to look at and work with you on.
No, appreciate that. It is just a central critical issue that's facing, all producers of food right now, unfortunately, or so many different sectors. Um, you know, you might speak, you talked about the agenda a little bit, and you mentioned the deputies position. Obviously, the secretary needs a full complement of his team down there to meet the challenges as quickly as it can. Can you speak a little bit to what you hope that might look like in terms of getting folks that need to be confirmed through? We spoke with Secretary Vilsack a little earlier. He has an aggressive agenda, and wanted to see how the committee is working with the administration and the new secretary to achieve that.
Well, we certainly want to get positions that need Senate confirmation done as quickly as possible. I mentioned Dr. Jewel Bernella, and had a chance to meet and talk with her. I was very impressed. And this is just right now a paperwork issue, getting it once we have the paperwork, the dreaded paperwork, once we have that in front of the committee, we will certainly move her forward. And I want to make sure that, the secretary has his team, and that he feels is important to be able to get done what he gets done. He's already stolen one of my team, so I told him, just keep your hands off my team. But Mike Schmidt, who is actually, we stole him from USDA, and Secretary Vilsack took him back, but as a senior advisor, and he's been just wonderful for us. But we, from my standpoint, we just need to get those positions filled. And frankly, I have real concern because of the actions, the moving, the research efforts and others, in the last couple of years. We've lost a lot of senior people, a lot of really important researchers and other senior talent because of movement that was made with the former administration. And I'm concerned about morale. I'm concerned about keeping expertise, and want to make sure that we're sending the message that, that this will be a good place to work with some consistency, and that we will in fact believe in science and operate in that way, so that professionals will want to stay and be a part of the USDA.
Yeah, well, and then unfortunately, we're just about out of time. We really appreciate the amount of time that you've given us today, and your open door, quite frankly, to allow farmer voices to be shared with the committee and your members there. But as a follow-up to your most recent points on the expertise at USDA and some of the changes that happened there, we also know that just over the last many years, the investment that the U.S. has done in public research has really fallen behind the rest of the world. And as we talk about some of these big challenges, whether it's new market opportunities, whether it's climate, the investment that we will need to make in public research is massive. Any thoughts you might share here as we kind of conclude about what the outlook might be for that?
Well, Rob, I'm a huge supporter in public research, public-private research together. You know, in the 2014 Farm Bill that when I was chair, Senator Roberts and I created the foundation FAR that is public-private. And even though there were those who, you know, wanted to defund it in the 2018 Farm Bill, we linked arms and made sure that that didn't happen. I think that a lot more needs to happen there. I've also been the person pushing for research in a number of areas. We've increased organic research. We need to increase, you know, research in all kinds of areas. So that's something I feel very strongly about. And so we'll look for every opportunity to do that. I mean, we need to be talking about sound science, information. I know how critical it is for each of you to be successful. For farmers to be successful, they have to have accurate data. They have to have sound science. They have to have confidence that what they are doing and the way they are doing, you know, is the best way. And so that in everything we want to do that, including what we're talking about for climate. I mean, this has got to be based on science. This is not about rhetoric or ideology or whatever. This is about science and what is happening and what we can do to fix it, which we can. And farmers and foresters will be the leaders. I mean, if we move here before other parts of the economy are really moving or other things in terms of legislation, I believe that you have a lot to really be proud of in taking the lead on this.
All righty. It's a great note to end here. You know, thank you once again for not only your time today, but your leadership on behalf of farmers and consumers nationwide. Thank you so much, Senator Stabenow.
Great. Have a great day. Look forward to seeing you in person.
All righty.